Well, hello and welcome to tonight's Wealth Builders webinar. I'm Karen Conrad. I'm Vice President of Wealth Builders. And on behalf of Billy and Becky Epperhart, we want to thank you so much for being a part of this family. You know, I've just really been impressed. Dave and I have been in prayer and just really digging into the word in areas of what Jesus has done for us. And we keep seeing real estate and wealth as something that God desires for us. And I'll tell you what, we are so excited for all that God is doing through Wealth Builders. And just a big shout out to Billy and Becky. Just what they have imparted into all of us has just been such a life-changing experience. And you'll hear a little bit about that tonight. But mainly you're going to be hearing about real estate and how God desires for you to succeed in real estate. So I'm pretty happy about having my sidekick with me tonight, one of our amazing real estate coaches, Frank Pulley. Frank, can you say hi to everybody?
Hey everybody, I'm the one with the Band-Aid on the nose. Visit to the dermatologist today, but it's a good thing. So I'm really looking forward to listening to Karen, what Karen has to say, and helping answer some of your questions. So thanks for being on board.
Oh, thank you. I thought it made you look kind of tough.
Yeah, you should see the other guy.
Awesome. Well, I want to remind all of you too that this is an interactive webinar. And what I mean by that is that I'll go through a presentation, of course, but then Frank and I are here to answer any questions that you have regarding real estate or anything else that you might want to ask about Wealth Builders. So I'll be sharing with you for about 45 minutes, and then we'll break into question and answer. And if you are watching this on Zoom, go ahead and enter your questions into the chat section. We've got an amazing team standing by. You don't see them, but boy, that we couldn't do anything that we do without them. And they are gathering your questions. They'll be forwarding those to me. And if you're live tonight watching on Facebook, go ahead and enter those questions in on the comment section. We will answer as many as possible, but let's go ahead and get started. So tonight's topic is 5 strategies for real estate investing. You know, before I knew too much about real estate, I didn't realize that there was a lot of strategies or things that you can do that actually contributes to your success in real estate. And one of the things we do at Wealth Builders and at the upcoming conference that we have, the Wealth Builders Conference, is we take you through, it's over 20 sessions of not only the wisdom of wealth, but the how-tos. And so this is a little introduction that I think is going to really empower you. I think you're going to walk away from this webinar feeling like you can go out and make a difference in real estate. So one of the most exciting things about real estate is based on this quote that I'm going to be sharing with you. And it is, well, actually, it's a fun fact that over the last 2 centuries, about 90% of the world's millionaires have been created by investing in real estate. Wow, there is something to pay attention to here. For the average investor, real estate offers the best way to develop significant wealth. So you are definitely tuned in to the right webinar here. The next thing I want to share with you is that the IRS has reported that 71% of all Americans declaring 1 million or more on their tax returns during the past 50 years were in real estate or real estate related activities. Again, laying a foundation that being interested in real estate is definitely the way to go for building wealth. And we've got a great track record with wealth to follow. So tonight, what I'm going to be covering is some very practical information on what I would say are the how-tos. And I'm going to be talking about 5 strategies for you to consider for real estate investing. One is a law of leverage. Number 2 is just an encouragement, and I'll give you information on staying within the recommended rails to run on, is what I'd like to call that. Multiple exit strategies, which is really key when you buy real estate. I'm going to be sharing with you about how you can utilize home equity lines of credit and cash out refinances to help you in your real estate investing. And then finally, I'll be sharing with you some information on the real estate professional designation, which is a big key to you saving a lot of money on your taxes. Just a quick story before we go into this is there's a lot of people out there that earn a lot of money. Like if you look at doctors, dentists, business people, but when they don't shelter their income in a way like we teach and Billy teaches on real estate, they actually end up with a take-home pay that is less than many of us that we report much less on our income. And Billy will be sharing more about this, but he shared just a couple stories recently about people that were very high earners, but they were writing checks to the IRS. One of them was over $300,000. And his answer to them was, you got to start investing in real estate. And so I'm going to be sharing strategies with you on how to find the right properties and do well with real estate. But I'm going to be touching on some things as well that's going to help you mitigate your taxes and your risk in real estate. So let's start out first of all with the law of leverage. This is actually one of the strategies that Dave and I, sitting in real estate workshop after real estate workshop, had an aha moment at the same time where we finally got this. The law of leverage is something that I think kind of challenges our brain a bit, because I love Dave Ramsey. I'm sure all of you listen to him, but it's all about getting out of debt, getting out of debt, getting out of debt. And that's good, right? We don't want to have debt. However, what this is talking about is a way for you to leverage debt in a way that is good, meaning it's going to make you money. And Dave and I didn't get this until, like I mentioned to you, we were finally in a real estate workshop where the light bulb went off. And you know what? This was the strategy that got us from thinking about investing in real estate to actually going in and investing in real estate. So I really like this picture here. You've got the hard work, you've got better results with leverage. And then when you put this fulcrum under it, and all of you that, the teeter-totter days, you see this, you'll have huge success. So what do I mean about the law of leverage, and in particular about real estate? And this is the part that we just went, oh my goodness, it's amazing. All right, so let's say I have $20,000 to invest. I have a lot of different options, right? I could invest it in my business, which typically will give you a good return if you manage it well. We could put it in the stock market, and we totally believe in that in investing, or we could put it in real estate. And just to be clear, we believe in a balanced approach to wealth building. But I have to say, real estate has got a significant edge here that you're going to see very clearly as I go through this. So if I have $20,000 and I want to put it in the stock market, I take that $20,000 and I purchase stock, which you could say is a $20,000 asset. And let's say I have a good return. I have 10% return. At the end of the year, from my $20,000, I am going to earn $2,000. That's a good return, but I want to tell you there is something even better when we consider the law of leverage. Now, if I go into real estate and I utilize this law of leverage, this is what it looks like. I'll put $20,000 down. And you can relate to this even if you're not investing in real estate, because you've purchased your own home and you're going to see what I'm talking about here. Put $20,000 down on, oh, my comma's in the wrong place. I have enough zeros, but on a $200,000 asset. So if I'm buying a home, I put 10% down and buying it for $200,000. If I get a 10% return on that investment, it's not $2,000 on the money that I put down. It's $20,000, because when you use the law of leverage in this situation, I'm earning 10% on the entire value of the asset. Now I'm going to go back just real quick here. So again, stock market, 20,000, 10% return, $2,000. When you use the law of leverage as a down payment, and you've got the $200,000 asset, that's what you earn on. So many of you have enjoyed increases in your primary dwelling, maybe in your investment property in this up market. We've seen 20, sometimes 30% in the market, but generally when you look at the history of real estate, you might see a little bit of blips, but overall for over 75 years, it is a steady incline. And so history is one of our best teachers. So some of the other things to keep in mind that's a benefit using this law of leverage is you have tax benefits. You've got depreciation, which we call a phantom loss. You've got interest and other costs that you can write off your taxes. You have no capital gains unless you sell it. And even in that case, you have the opportunity for a 1031 exchange. And I'll be talking about this a little bit later today, but you have the opportunity to do a cash out refi, which has no taxes. So we personally just went through that, and the cash out refi, and you'll learn more about this at the real estate workshop, is one of those tools that you can use to get the money back out of your investment, and you can redeploy that into other properties. So more about that later. So again, here, if we just look at it on a table, the stock market, $20,000 investment, $20,000 asset, a $2,000 return, real estate, $20,000 investment, same money, $200,000 asset, $20,000 return on 10%. All right, here is the second strategy, is stay within the recommended rails to run on. One thing I appreciate so much about what Billy and Becky do is they have given us these guidelines that we can succeed in any market. And Billy, the next webinar, he's going to be teaching on, is this a market to buy in? And the answer is yes. And he'll give you information on that. But when you stay within these guidelines, it keeps you safe. One of the things that we share with people in coaching is that don't just buy for appreciation. That's kind of like gambling, right? But it's hard to know exactly what to look for in analyzing property. So we've laid things out, and I'll touch on each of these so that you get an idea of what these are. The first one is when you look at a property, you want to earn between 1 and 1.5% of monthly rent based on the purchase price for what we call a buy and hold. I'll explain more about that later as well. So with that, if I'm buying a $200,000 property, I'm going to want to look at getting $2,000, maybe to $3,000 in a return of rental income on a monthly basis. And one of the sessions that I teach in the real estate workshop is how to analyze that when you can do it right with your fuzzy slippers on and going online to check out markets. But you can quickly assess a market that is a potential market by this one metric. And you do that. I go into realtor.com and I'll look at a market and I look at the purchase price, maybe look at a 3.2, around 2,000 square feet. And then I'll go click over on the rent. Okay. And then I'll look at similar houses in that same market and see where it lands. And you can really, in less than a minute, you can see quickly in a market you're considering if it's going to be able to come close to this metric or not. When we're in a very low interest rate environment, we could bend this a bit, meaning that if you got in some cases, even at 0.5%, certainly at 0.75, because you're able to lock in at a really low interest rate and keep your principal and interest fixed, we could look at tweaking that a bit. And again, there is some flexibility with these other guidelines that I give you. But in this market where we're more back to the standard pricing on mortgages, I was in banking for 25 years, and the more standard mortgage rates were between 6 and 8%. We've been spoiled. That doesn't seem quite normal to us. But actually it is more normal. So this metric is very important to take a look at to make sure you're close to it. Second, in a market, you want to look to be 3 to 4 times the median income. That's household income for the price of a home. Billy shares the example. It's really quite stunning that out in San Francisco, you might pay $1 million for a property. And then when you look at the rental rate on it, it might be $4,000. That's not a 1%, right? that is a 0.4%. But in addition, the payment or the rental rate on a property like that is way beyond the median income. And that is not a good position to be in any downturn or surprise in a market. And now, especially when we're looking, we know that there's some economic challenges. The Fed is raising rates. And so this is an area that you don't want to be at the upper end of the market, because the last houses to actually rent in a downturn in a market is a luxury home. So we'll talk a little bit more about that as well. But if you stay within the 3 to 4 times median income, you're going to be safe in the price of that home. The way that you find out the median income is that you Google it. And I encourage you to put in the year 2022, and it will give you the information on the area that you're looking. Minimum of $300 positive cash flow on a buy and hold. Vacation properties are a little bit different, but that's just taking your total expenses and then subtracting them from your total income on the rent, and you want to have a margin of $300. And then finally, a 10 to 20% cash on cash return, which means that you analyze the amount you're going to make on a year, and whatever cash that you put into it, you want to land between 10 and 20%. This is actually becoming a really important metric in this period of time. And so I would just encourage you to just take these and use them to help you stay in a safe place for your strategies. I already mentioned this to you with cash flow. Your total monthly income is your total minus your total monthly expense gives you your cash flow. But I also want to just plant this seed is when you buy a rental property and you rent it out and you're collecting rent on it, it's great that you're getting a little bit of cash flow. But remember, probably your bigger asset with that, or your bigger advantage, is that you have got a tenant that is paying down your mortgage. And that's a beautiful thing. There's 3 things that you get back from a property that is, cash flow. You've got appreciation, but then you've also got somebody paying down your mortgage so that principal goes down at the same time. All right, we have got a calculator that Billy put together that's out on Wealth Builders. You can go to wealthbuilders.org, and this is actually the link on it. So as we go through these calculations, we actually give you a free tool that you can take your property, you can enter the key information, and it calculates it for you. We are really, really encouraging you to take advantage of these tools so that you can get into real estate investing and do it well. All right, the third thing we're going to talk about for strategies is multiple exit strategies. I really believe in this. And the quote, and you maybe all saw this on Facebook, we posted it out there. Billy says, you make money when you buy property, not when you sell. That was just counterintuitive to me, because it's like, wait a minute, when I walk away with a check is when I sell. But this is so true as we've gotten into the real estate investing, is that when you buy right, that's when you make money, whether you get your check at the time or not. This is a time that you want to pay attention and buy right. So one of the things that we do is whenever we buy a property, we make sure that we have got 3 potential exit strategies with that property. You want at least 2, and I'll go through what that is. But if you can get in a market where you've got 3 ways to really mitigate your risk or to make money on that property, you really go in increasing your odds of success. So the 3 are this, and I'll explain a little bit more on each of these. So one of the exit strategies is a buy and hold, which is where you have a long-term rental where you're earning the cash flow that we talked about. The second one is a flip, which I don't know, I'm guessing you guys are like me. I love flips. I know that there's a little bit more risk to them, but there's something about that transformation, right? That's so exciting, but we need to be able to do it right. And then the third exit strategy that I look for is a short-term rental. So when we purchase a property, which right now we're heavily investing in an area called Cocoa Beach, Florida, which you've probably heard about. I share more. I do the podcast tomorrow, which is based on fix and flips. And I introduce you to some of the pros and cons and talk about that experience. But that is a market that we look at, and we know that if we go into a property, we're going to be able to use any one of these three strategies for what I call an exit strategy. So let's go into a little bit more detail on what these entail. So when we talk about a buy and hold, that's really your long-term rental. This is sort of like that comfort place as an investor. We've got three buy and holds down in near Waco, Texas. It's a very stable market. When we looked at it, we saw there was the 1 to 1.5% following all the guidelines, but also there's a really big demand for rental housing there. And that's another key to look at that I go into detail at the real estate workshop and show you how to look for the demand in buy and holds. So what's nice about that is while we might not be making $2,000 a month because we put minimum down on each of those, it is a steady payment coming in that not only covers our payment, but gives us that cash flow and pays down our mortgage. And so when we do that, it's a safe amount of money coming in. And when you have a property manager, I would say this is the area that you truly have passive income. There's always things that might come up, but we have Andrea down there. She does a great job. I really don't hear from her hardly ever, which is great. And those properties, we just have payments showing up every month. That's a buy and hold. You run the numbers to meet that criteria. And here's something that I just want to throw out there as something to watch for is when you go into a market and you analyze it, something that you want to watch out for is even though the numbers might work today, pay attention to the real estate taxes. Why is that important? Let me explain to you something that can happen that will affect your analysis. So if you go into a property and let's say that somebody, they fixed it up for you. So when you purchased that property, it was at a significantly higher amount than what they purchased it for because they did it as a flip. Now it's great as an investor because you go in, you don't have a lot of work to do. But you need to anticipate that based on the sale of the property that you purchased it at, you are going to see a hike in real estate taxes because all the information on purchases goes right to the county and they assess it and they raise the real estate taxes. So when you go in, you might go in at a certain amount in your escrow, but as that catches up, it can really squeeze your margin. One other area, new builds are awesome. The great thing about that is you basically have 10 years that you can be, sure that you're not going to probably have a significant expense on that property. But that also is taxed at a lot tax rate. So when you buy it, your taxes might be really small, but when it catches up that there's actually a new build on there and they reassess that, all at once, your safe margin can become extremely squeezed and in some cases can actually go negative. So I just want to mention that to make you aware of it. All right, number 2, for you out there that love flipping houses like I do, here's some things that you want to think about when you go in as a flip for an exit strategy. And I like them to work again in all 3. Solidify your ARV, which is your after repair value. Your real estate agent can help you with that. And in some cases, you might want to get an appraisal before you go into it and bring that in for your financing so that you actually get financing to cover the improvements. If the market is showing a strong flip, I encourage you to move quickly to mitigate the risk of the market changing. We're in a fluctuating market. There is quite a bit happening. And one way that you can capture the current market is not sit on it for 6 months. Try not to sit on it for 9 months or any longer, but try to turn that property so that you, when your analysis took place, you actually have the ability to sell it in that same market. Stay away from volatile markets, things that go very high and very low. Those are the areas that are going to change quickly on you. Buy low. Remember, you make money when you buy. Count the cost. And then for me, because I like things nice, I have to add 10 to 15% on that so that I'm not way over budget outside of what I was expecting. Be sure to include your carrying costs in your analysis. Really, really important, because every month, every week that you hold that property, not only are you paying for the improvements in a flip situation, but you're making your payments, you're paying your taxes, you have insurance, you have those expenses that just keeps it going, your utilities. And some people going into flipping, they don't consider that. So make sure you budget that. Consider the tax consequences. When you flip a home, if you sell it within a year, it's considered earned income. If you hold it for over a year, then it's considered capital gains. There's also 1031s. So you have to kind of measure that to make sure you get it sold in the current market. You want to move fast, but just plan for it, that it's earned income. And I'll give you a tip later on how you can get yourself in a position where it doesn't really hurt you with other real estate. Also, do not under improve or over improve for the neighborhood. I think a lot of us, our temptation is to over improve. We want things really nice. I tend to do that. And I've got a great team with my husband, Dave, and my son, Levi, that remind me that that's not going to bring a return. A matter of fact, I think I hear that quite a bit from Levi, Mom. That's not going to bring you one more dollar when you sell that home or rent it out. And then just pay attention to market trends in your area. And that can mean everything from, hey, what's important? Is a new kitchen important in this area? Is outdoor space important? What is important in the area? And then you can take advantage of those trends and make good decisions with your flips. I do want to mention before I go into this next one that flips can be a very, very important part of your strategy. And a lot of that is for cash flow. So we even talk about a rhythm, like maybe you do 2 to 3 buy and holds or vacation rentals, then you do a flip. I have a personal example to share with that. We did 3 properties in near Waco, Texas. And I had only a certain amount of money that I was using. So it's like I didn't have $1 million. I didn't have anywhere near that. So I was very careful with my down payments. And then I had to put some money in for improvements. And we had to do a flip or we would have been like really cash tight. And so we had planned this out where we did 3 buy and holds and then a flip. So the money that I put into buying the 3 buy and holds and the property for a flip was a certain amount of money. And then when I sold the flip house, I got all that money back. And then guess what I could do? I could take that and purchase additional real estate. So pay attention to your cash flow, and flips can be a critical part to help you keep growing and moving in purchasing real estate. Now let's talk about vacation and short-term rentals. Remember, this is all about 3 exit strategies. So when we buy in the Cocoa Beach area in particular, we measure each of these and do an analysis to make sure that no matter where we end up on that property, we're going to come out ahead in some form or fashion. So if you are interested in vacation rentals, which a lot of you are, a lot of our coaching clients, because I talked to you about that, you really need to analyze the market for demand. The Waco area, we're in a little small town outside of that. It's really not a vacation rental market, maybe more in Waco, but we're not in there. So I couldn't count on this as an exit strategy. But when you find an area that meets a criteria for vacation rental, there's some additional things you want to think about. First of all, be realistic with the nightly rate and the occupancy percentage. You're not going to be 100% occupied. And you might be 80% occupied, but I wouldn't run my numbers on that. Not when I'm analyzing this as an exit strategy. I would probably sit more at 50% and stay conservative. And you want to make sure you can cash flow at that. In seasonal areas, you actually want to shorten that and you want to make your money in 2 to 3 months. Can you cash flow in that period of time? The first vacation rental that I owned was in Minnesota. Those of you that know Minnesota, it is cold in Minnesota. There's no one that says, oh my gosh, I can't wait to go visit Minnesota in February. However, when you go there in June, July, August, and September, people are crazy about the summer there. So when I looked there, I knew like, wow, I've got to make my money in 3 months or it's not going to work. Now, Cocoa Beach is a completely different story. Cocoa Beach, there are seasons, but there are multiple peak seasons. There's really only one slow season, and that's the time that we're in now. So I analyze it based on that to understand where the market is. Also, you want to check with your HOA and your city requirements. A lot of times it's just so exciting to go into vacation rentals. I love it because I think it's biblical hospitality, all around. And that's really like grabs a lot of our hearts and it inspires. But if your HOA has got rules against it, you will have purchased a home based on an exit strategy that's not conducive to you actually carrying it out. Also, there's city requirements, there's taxes to consider. Some of them have minimum criteria like fire extinguishers, exit signs. So check all of that out before you leap into a vacation property. Calculate your cleaning costs, your taxes, and your commission to vacation sites and or a property manager. One of the things we share with you is with a buy and hold, you can expect maybe between 8 and 10% from your property manager. If you hire a property manager, a traditional one for vacation rentals, you're looking at 20, 30, in some markets up to 50%. So check that out beforehand and decide if you are going to manage it yourself, understand what that takes. Or if you hire a property manager, run your numbers with those dollars in mind. If you go into vacation rentals, have a cash reserve to handle the inconsistency of rent. If you are going into real estate and you're really still kind of living paycheck to paycheck, meaning if you had a blip, vacation rentals are not for you because there's a lot of inconsistency, but just reserve for that if you can, and you can ride the ups and downs. Generally, if you're in a good market and you analyze it correctly, most people that I talk to actually end up profiting more from a vacation rental, even though it's a lot of work, than with a buy and hold if they do what I'm sharing with you. Check on the culture of the area toward vacation rentals. One of the things when I was a real estate agent in Colorado, a big discussion point was that the Vail area had passed something where they were no longer going to allow individuals to have vacation rentals, that everybody had to go through a property manager. So there is a move across some communities with that. And so just, you can tell the tone of it. You can talk to your Chamber of Commerce, talk to your real estate agent to understand what the culture is towards vacation rentals in the area that you want to invest. You can consider executive rentals and traveling nurses. They're not available everywhere, but Billy talks about this. They did it with one of their properties and did really well. One of the websites that we use personally is Furnished Finders, and they oversee, or they own, one of the traveling nurses. I was just sharing with a coaching client today that to find out if you are in a market that could work for this, go to Furnished Finders, and there's an area where you can click on like traveling nurses or medical professionals, put in the zip code, and they'll actually send you updates and let you know what the demand is. And I think that's a good potential for people, but just make sure the demand is there. And then ask the question, is tourism dependent on anything that could go away? And then communication and cleanliness are key. So you just have to know the things that you need to really focus on to have a successful vacation rental. All right. Strategy number 4, home equity lines of credit and cash out refinances. Home equity lines of credit, we didn't talk about too much over the past few years because interest rates on traditional mortgages were so low. But home equity lines of credit are definitely making a comeback. And let me explain to you how they can benefit you. Many of you know Mike Davis. He is one of our coaches, and he was doing discussions with Billy about real estate, and they're drawing things out in the napkin. And Mike was like, I don't have the money to be able to invest in real estate. They were living paycheck to paycheck, and he just didn't think it was possible. Then Billy asked him the question, like, hey, well, how much do you owe on your home? What's your home worth? Well, they were like 2 months away from paying their home off. So he had money sitting in his property that he could deploy into real estate, and he didn't even know it until he had that discussion. And we run into that all the time. People have been paying their house off, and that's a great thing. But if you do a home equity line of credit, especially with the market that's coming up in the next 6 months that Billy will be sharing about in the next couple of weeks, You want to be ready to be able to take advantage of anything in a home equity line of credit is a way to go. So in interest rate environments where interest rates are rising, banks really want the home equity lines of credit. And so what can you expect with that? Right now, most banks are offering between 150,000 and 250,000 without any type of appraisal needed. They'll just go off their internal system of an ARV. And generally, they'll give you an amount that you're approved for, and it's a line of credit. So you don't pay interest on that until you need it. Then you write a check out and you access that. You can use it as a down payment, or if you have a lot of equity, you can actually purchase a property for cash. In that situation, which puts you in a really strong position. Couple things just real quick here, more content than time, but home equity line of credit, in my opinion, with 25 years of banking, should not be a permanent solution for you in real estate. It's something that when you access your line of credit, plan on finding a way to pay off that advance, to pay it down, whether it's through a traditional refinance on the mortgage market, or earning money on that property. But it's not a great long-term solution, but it is a great way to begin investing and let all this other stuff go to work. And then you've got the equity sitting in your investment property. The next one is a cash out refinance. We just did this on one of our properties. So I'll just give you a scenario because I think this is probably going to apply to a lot of you, at least the way you think about things. So we purchased one of 3 properties down in Cocoa Beach. The last one we purchased needed a lot of work. And so we put about $100,000 into it. So we bought it at 462. I put $100,000 into it for improvements. And then I'm looking at my bank account and I'm like, oh my gosh, I need to get some cash back, because if there's an opportunity to buy another property, I just put all my money into the property, right? Now, I didn't do that, like not thinking about it. I knew this was coming. But one thing you can do is get an ARV loan, which is another topic. But I knew that if I did it right and based on my analysis, that when I got to the end of the updating and I got an appraisal done, that I would have enough equity in that place to be able to get my $100,000 and maybe more back out. And that's exactly what happened, because I had studied the market and I knew when I made improvements that I should get a certain value. So we bought it at 462. I put 100,000 into it. Okay. And then the appraisal came back as 695. So based on that, I did an 80% cash out. I got all the money that I had put into it back. And now we have money sitting there based on that we're ready to deploy into another property that comes up. Now, this is really key to your strategy, because this money that came back to me over $100,000 is completely tax-free. It has no tax consequences whatsoever. And I went from about 10% equity in that property to 20% equity in the property, plus got all my cash out. That's Deuteronomy 8:18. And also what I did too, is a little tip for you, is I was ready when that appraiser showed up. I did a whole document. I went out, I analyzed comps on realtor.com. I listed the properties out. I listed everything that we did to improve it. And when he left, I gave it to him and I said, gosh, based on this, I just don't see any way that this is going to be able to come in really much less than $700,000. And he looked at me and he said, well, he goes, I analyze this different than you do, but I'll do my best. And it came in at 695. If I had not done that analysis, if I had not presented comps, if I had not shared everything that we did to improve that property, I can assure you my value would not have been anything close to that, because it would be an easy way out, but I had the information. So maybe we'll do something on that sometime too, to help you like how to work with an appraiser. So that's a cash out refinance. All right. And finally here, so get ready for your questions. Finally, there's something that is called a real estate professional designation. And Billy has a great teaching on this. And I'm really excited. We met with our CPA and we actually qualified for this. But what this does, if you've owned real estate, you realize that if you've got a loss on your property, it caps your ability at, I think it's $25,000. So if I had a loss, depreciation, expenses that exceeded $25,000, I'm not able to actually reduce my tax liability beyond a write-off of 25,000. But a real estate professional designation takes the lid off that. And there are certain strategies to achieve it. It's something that your CPA has to help you with. But when I went through this scenario with our CPA, we've got 6 properties. We bought 3 this year. I've done 1 flip, the remodel, the traveling, the education can be a part of it. She's just like, you are a slam dunk. I was like, I am? This is amazing. I'm not even a licensed real estate agent right now. She said, no, you're a slam dunk. And that's what you want to hear from a CPA, or they can coach you on how to get that designation. So that in itself, because we sold that flip this year, is going to save us so much money in taxes. And of course, real estate, that is one of the beautiful things about investing in real estate, is that you save taxes. So again, it's called a real estate professional qualification. It requires material participation in properties, specific rentals, and material participation. I'm sorry, I'm like, can't really see this part of it, but in a real property trade. So if you're a real estate agent, that can help qualify other things as well. And generally it's a 50% rule, 750 hours rule, and a 5% ownership rule. However, if you work with your CPA, or if you listen to Billy's teaching on this, there are many paths to achieve this. And one of the things that you can do to really boost your potential of getting this designation is to do flips. All right. So that's a lot of information for you in a short order here on real estate strategy. And I am going to just invite our awesome coach, Frank Pulley, to add some comments on this as we take a look at questions coming in. Frank.
How much time you got? That was phenomenal. That was really good. I'll just touch on a few things, Karen. I mean, it's true that many millionaires have been made by real estate. It's not complicated. If you know the numbers and they're accurate, it normally will work out for you, but education equals much less risk. You've got to know what you're doing, like anything else. You have more control over real estate than you do the stock market. Now, I'm not saying the stock market's bad. As a matter of fact, you should be talking to our investment coach, Chad Franson, for advice on that. But it's kind of interesting when the media tends to play up real estate growth and losses. Normally real estate, you can look at a national trend, but it really, what counts is within the area you're investing. We saw a thing the other day that said real estate inventory doubles, last month. Well, we were looking at it, and so it was an area in Colorado where they went from 5,000 available listings to 10,000, but the norm is about 30 to 35,000. So they tend to juice that up a little bit. The thing is, I think the exit strategies, I think having those really provides you a safe harbor. And like I say, if you make sure that your numbers are right, and we as real estate coaches can help with that, with people that are part of our program, normally you're going to come out okay. And, the final thing is, it's going to take effort, focus, and it's going to take work. Don't believe the guys on the midnight commercials, because it's, I'm not going to say it's impossible. It's not. It's very possible, but you have to focus. And if it was easy, as they say, everybody would do it. That's it,
That's
Karen.
great, Frank. I totally agree. Perseverance and, there's just some things that come up. I won't share the sordid details, although I probably will talk more about in future podcasts, but we had quite an eventful week last week.
Yeah,
It's just part of it. You get
yeah.
strong,
Oh, yeah.
God's called you to it and you stay with it. All right, Frank, we have got so many questions. This
That's
is
great.
awesome. You are an awesome, awesome audience out there for this, and we're going to learn from you with these questions.
Yes,
So I'm going to ask and we'll answer as many of them as
yes.
possible. So let's start with Ed. Ed Fortenberry, thank you so much for being on tonight. We so appreciate that. He's got a great question. He says, prices for real estate are falling. When is the best time to grab bargains? Wait for a complete crash? What do you think, Frank?
I don't think a complete crash is going to happen. I think it's getting a little worse. It's going to get a little worse, a little better. Understand that the market in the mid 2000s was a combination of over appraisals and no lending requirements. So basically, if you could fog a mirror, you got a loan, and that really came back to haunt the lenders. I mean, thousands and thousands of properties just went into foreclosure. They tried to throw them back on a market. That caused a huge influx of inventory, and it was a vicious cycle. That's not going to happen anymore. I mean, Karen can tell you that lender requirements are pretty stringent anymore, as they should be. And appraisals, again, they handle appraisals a little differently. You get honest appraisals now. So yes, we could have a little bit of softening, but I don't think there's going to be a crash. Now, to answer your question, I think you have to look at what some of the information that Karen presented to you. Look in the areas that you plan on investing and see if it meets those parameters. If it meets those parameters, you're going to make money. Who cares what you pay for it?
That's awesome, Frank. I totally agree with that. And that's where buying right in any market, I think that's what Billy says. You can make money in any market. And you and Bill Bronchek, you've been in real estate for a long time. You've gone through a lot of markets. I was in banking during the time of that crash. I know what was happening. I was talking to regulators, across the desk talking about it. And this is not that situation. Even the demand for homes is much higher. Okay, and then he also says, I believe I remember Billy mentioning a 4 property max for conventional loans. Is that correct? And if so, is there a way to work around it? That's actually not correct. I think it's 10. Is that right, Frank?
I believe that's correct. Yeah, although if you're going to go 10, the lending requirements are a little more stringent, and you have to have some reserves. And what those reserves are up kind of to your lender.
Yeah, it can vary, but I don't know. We just ride the conventional loans as long as possible. Though we really do recommend finding a local bank, but find a good mortgage lender. We've got an awesome mortgage broker that is just so good to work with. And so we have many more than 4 right now, and you can do a lot compared to what we used to. All right, this question is from Linda Willoughby. Hello, Linda. And she says, is this for a single family home or does it apply to multifamily as well, Frank?
Well, it can apply to multifamily as well. One of the things that we do is we also on any properties that are 5 units and over, we do what's called a performance evaluation, or we can measure the worth by the performance. And banks do that also. And it's a combination of what the gross income should be, what the expenses are, less the expenses, of course, from the gross income, less the mortgage payment. And that leaves you an amount of money you get every month. And then depending on how much you put down, it gives you kind of a return on investment. And so they can gauge that based on those things. But I think if you know how to do that, it's great to gauge your single family homes with the same formula. That's just an extra backup.
Awesome. This question is from Fran Gorham. Hello, Fran. Thanks for joining us. This is a great question. She says, does this organization use Zillow's home price forecast or others? She said she sees on the latest one that has top 100 cities that Florida towns are mostly at 3 to 5 value range, showing very high compared to the rest of the cities on the list across the country. I use Zillow in my analysis for certain things. I don't depend on Zillow for my analysis. There's a very big difference, but I gather data to do my own analysis from Zillow. I saw actually an article that was talking about the top cities to invest in. Okay. And I was like, hey, I just want to see what they're talking about. Their criteria was not what we've been talking about. Their criteria was like 0.4%, of the rental rate on the purchase price. So they're not thinking the way that we think with an investor, but I really do appreciate Zillow with the information. And one of the areas I use them in is I like to see what they think I can rent something for.
Yeah.
So anything to add to that, Frank?
Well, be careful of those estimates. Again, you gotta dig in, see how many bedrooms and baths it's got, and you find comparable properties to that are basically in the same shape, similar square footage nearby. I mean, there's a lot of criteria that goes into that. And I know this estimate kind of does that, but it's an electronic appraisal and it's just not as good as you digging in and comparing the facts.
Yeah, that's great. This is a question from Raymond Welch. Hello, Raymond. Thanks for joining us. He said, good evening. Could you please explain the term carrying costs? Absolutely. This is something that I know near and dear because we were carrying 3 properties in Florida, and it includes just those things that are outside of the improvements that you're making during the time you're either making improvements on the property, or maybe you are waiting for that renter to come in and start renting. So it's things like your mortgage payment, your insurance, your taxes. In Florida, you have to have an exterminator come in on the outside of the house. You're mowing the lawn unless you want to do that, the water bill, the electricity, those types of things. If you just look at what you pay for in your own household that you live in, you can apply those same things and just manage those and include those in your budget so that they don't take you by surprise. This is from Beth Thomas. Hello, Beth. Oops, it just popped on me. There we go. How do you research for areas that are good markets? We are in a position to buy something now. How do we get started? Frank, do you want to start out answering that?
Karen gives an unbelievably good presentation on this. Are you going to be doing that at the real estate?
Yes, I'm going to be doing that on Sunday morning.
Yeah, stand by for that. But basically, you use the criteria that Karen talked about. Here's what's great. 30 years ago, if you wanted to go on the MLS, you went to your real estate agent and they had it in a big book. Now we have information instantly available to us as far as median income, price comparisons, what rents are, and that sort of thing. So basically, if you can go ahead and do that, then you should be good to go.
Mm-hmm. I'll give you just a real quick kind of down and dirty here to get you started, because I know if you guys are like me, I'm on like realtor.com every morning, you real estate enthusiasts, right? So here's what I do. If I'm looking at a new market, just real quick, I'll look at the prices of the homes. And just like I mentioned, find maybe a 3-2, something that I'm looking for. Then on realtor.com, I'll go and I'll click on for rent. And then I'll start to compare a couple things with that. First of all, what's the rental rates compared to the purchase price? I do this one analysis that I'll do at the real estate workshop where I look at, I might do another market, but the one that I've been using for an example is Pagosa Springs, because we had a coaching client that was interested in that. So I pulled it up and I looked at what the prices were in Pagosa Springs. So like $450,000, $500,000 for a 3-2. Then I went in to look at rental rates and they're like $2,000, $2,250. I knew right away, you know what, that's not the market for me. And then you might say, well, what about vacation rentals? I did the same thing on vacation rentals and the pricing just wasn't there. Then here's another big clue. One of the coaching clients was interested in going to a college town. Now we've all heard that. And I would say that oftentimes college towns are good rental places, right? But when we went to the college town and looked at it, there was so many properties for rent. And I thought, man, I don't want to compete in this red ocean. because the only way I'm going to be able to compete is to lower my price, right? Or to do something that's going to be extraordinary, that's going to stand out in the market. So I really like to look for those markets, which is a perfect description of the market that we're in Texas. There's like no houses for rent there. And you can find that out on realtor.com. So to me, that's huge. If you find an area that you've got around that 1%, and when you look for houses or the type of properties you're going to rent, and there's almost none there, that means there is a high demand for rentals.
Yeah.
So hopefully that's enough to kind of get you started, Beth. And you're probably working your mobile app right now to try to find those properties. All right, Fran, great question, Fran Gorin. Thanks for this. On that property you purchased, an appraisal was high. How long did you wait to get the cash out at 80%? I waited 6 months. And the reason for that is that lenders today, we have a relationship with our lenders. And if you pay off your loan in less, or I think it's less than 6 months, they get a back charge that is thousands and thousands of dollars from the places that they sell the loan. So I would have done it sooner, probably, but I wanted to honor my lender. And so I waited the 6 months. We were gearing everything up. And then right on that day, boom, that's when we were going to close. So it didn't take long, but that's just something, they used to do that in my day in banking. So something to think about. This is from Stella Jack. Hi, Stella. And her question is, how does your credit score affect the approval of HELOCs, Frank?
A lot. If you have a low credit score, I mean, in the low 600s, you indeed might be able to get a loan, okay? Even an FHA loan. However, because lenders consider you a higher risk, you're going to probably pay more interest for sure, but possibly you may have to have more money down and that sort of thing. So the better your credit score is, the better terms you're going to get from a lender. And I'm telling you, as a real estate investor, while you still have a job, this is the time to really go after that credit score and get that thing going and make sure you pay down some debt and prepare yourself to live within your means while you're building this new business.
Yeah, absolutely. I think some banks are a little skittish on home equity credit lines, so they are underwriting them pretty tight with credit score. Okay, Frank, I just want you to know I didn't plant this question. Okay. This is a great question from Dean Jafarian. And he says, what do I do if I buy a house to renovate and flip, but then the market crashes before I get to sell it? And that is exactly what I was sharing with you. And that's why when you buy a property, that you analyze it from 3 exit strategies and have at least 2 exit strategies. So if you are flipping a house and you've done your due diligence to know that it would also work as a buy and hold, you can get a renter in there for a period of time that is going to carry your payments until the market comes back. But I would never do a flip if it would only work as a flip. And that's how you can keep yourself safe. Anything to add to that, Frank?
That actually happened to me twice in 2008. The part that I didn't like was, I had rehab money tied up in it. And I wasn't able to really get that back. But I was sitting pretty good anyway. And we'd already planned for the fact that this thing, it might happen. So we were in Colorado Springs. We were able to rent them out, for a couple of years each. Market started coming back up again because we'd gotten a pretty good deal on them to begin with. Made your money when you buy. And we were able to, once the tenants moved out, go in, do a little bit of, spit and polish, and then go ahead and sell the properties.
Yeah, and here's some good news with that too. The market's so fascinating, but when we're in a rising interest rate environment, the Fed is threatening again. So it'll be interesting. The last time they did this, the mortgage rates really went down eventually rather than up. So the market is saying you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing. Obviously, it's not responding. But anyway, in those those situations, you have less people that are able to, or that are willing to actually purchase a home. So it's crazy, but actually your buy and hold rental rates go up in the scenario that you just described. So it's a good option. All right. We are 1 minute away. I'm going to try to cover this one more question. This is from Will Smith. Hello, William. Thanks for joining us. And he says, any insights that you can share about dealing with contractors? That's a whole training session. But Frank, maybe you could just give us like our remaining 30-second answer on that.
Yeah, well, first of all, know the lingo. Know what they mean when they say stuff. And it's really easy to look up contractor ease, so to speak. Know the lingo, and then also have somebody you trust. And make sure you don't pay them all up front. Maybe a third down, but they need to perform and do the work according to specifications until you pay them a cent more, because that's what really motivates them.
Awesome. We've got some more questions, so don't be discouraged. We will cover them. Okay, so either in our next webinar or at the Q&A of the real estate workshop or on the podcast, I'll try to slip in a couple of those questions as we talk about flips in the next couple of weeks. And hey, if this has been of interest to you, I want to just invite you and encourage you to join us at the Real Estate Mastery Workshop. It's a powerful weekend. It's over 20 hours of teaching. We have such a great time. If you come in person, it's in Denver, Colorado. We just opened up the live stream as well. We take questions and answers through the whole time. We love it because it's a smaller group. So Billy and Becky really like to keep these workshops in a smaller group, because if any of you ever received a Becky hug, it's amazing. They just
It is.
love you. They love people, and it's an environment where we can spend time with you. So again, to learn more, go to wealthbuilders.org/events, and we would love to see you there. Also, we've got another webinar coming up that Billy's going to be doing. I think it's in a couple weeks. And so I hope this has been helpful. Thanks again, everyone. Have a wonderful night, and God bless you.
God bless you guys. Thanks for joining us.